discuss politics on another show because
No, we don't want to do that.
this show is not about politics.
You're right. I don't want to talk about it anyways. Just
You
upset.
know, so my guest, as you can tell, first of all, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Connected with Cari here on Jess TV, Jess FM, Underground Radio C, the NCG television network in Italy. Good morning, folks, over in Italy. I hope you guys are enjoying your Sunday, and I hope that it's warm there because it is cold here in Calgary, and we've had lots of snow. I'm not going to do conversion because I don't want to Google my conversions, but we had like 15 centimeters overnight. So that's like 7 inches of snow, roughly about that, right? Because you're about two. Okay. So yeah, 7 inches of snow overnight. Actually, no, not overnight. It's been started overnight and consistently going through the day. It just stopped a couple hours ago, so we're hoping that there's no more snow because it's up to our eyeballs now, and accidents everywhere. So those of you who are driving out in this, please take your time. Like I was out this morning at the gym, and then I was like, I'm going to get some little bit of groceries and I'm going home. And I'm like, that's it. Like, no more for the day. I can't take any more because it's Saturday and I want to just enjoy my day, and that's that. So those of you who are tuning in, welcome as usual. Thank you for being supportive and staying in and keeping warm. I appreciate it. That's all we want to do today is keep warm. And also, I just want to briefly, just a tidbit of this because I will probably forget at the end of the show, but I just want to quickly say two things are coming up. Two big things are coming up. First of all, some of you may or may not remember the past couple years around this time, I do the 12 Days of Christmas giveaways with Chiller. That's Serena Pollock is the owner of that. We will be starting on Wednesday, November 27th. So we are going to announce it tomorrow afternoon officially so that everyone kind of knows what to do. The rules, as usual, follow our socials. You guys know what the giveaways are. There are prizes for the public. There are prizes for Chiller members only. There's also email prizes. So if you're part of Chiller or if you just want the email, there's prizes within that. And then the Shift Happens show is also on Wednesday. That's with myself and Dina. Coincidentally, Dina and I, Dina, how do I say? She introduced me to our guest this evening. So that's the coincidental cool thing there. Also, Dina and I were doing a birthday shift because my birthday is on Wednesday. So, which is also one of the things that I'm going to briefly say is that we are doing for my birthday. If you guys can give to, it's a charity called Mamas for Mamas. And I'll be posting this up and then you guys can kind of see what to do and whatever. But Tooth Express is someone that's a small business owner. Jade Kennedy is her name. She owns Tooth Express, which is a mobile dental hygienist on wheels, which is cool. And she's collecting for this charity. So we're just saying that if you guys want to give, that would be awesome. And that would be like a birthday gift for me if you can give to them. Now, that will all be posted, so you guys will be in the know. I don't want to take away from my guest this evening. However, with me this evening is a returning guest. Now, you probably may have seen the show, may not have seen the show. John was with us on Underground Radio C on my single platform back in June, July, somewhere in there. So, okay, I'm getting some feedback. 1 second. I'm just gonna spot. Okay. I hope you guys can hear me now. Can you hear me, John?
You're fine.
Okay, great. So, John was with us in the summer, and we talked about his book. Now, this is a continued um, interview with his book because he's been doing a few things since then, and I just wanted to do a follow up, but also give the public more knowledge on what he is doing because I think what he is doing is very important. And again, just a quick reminder that Dina Court, who I do the Shift Happens show, introduced us. Now, Dina works, she runs the Life Changes in Divorce magazine of Canada, which is pertinent to this interview because John is also helping along those lines in a certain way. He'll go into that. So without further ado, please introduce yourself formally. Um, you could even give a little bit of background as well and kind of lead us up to date. I'm also going to put you on solo screen. Please don't think that I'm running away. Some guests think that I've lost connection or something. Not the case. It's only because we also go live through the Jess FM, or sorry, the Jess TV Instagram page. So some, like when it's formatted this way, they won't get us very well. That like will be cut off. So we're gonna kind of play around back and forth doing solo screens. So without further ado, and without me taking over the show, go ahead and formally introduce yourself.
Okay, well, my name is John Berrens. I am a school psychologist. A little bit of background on myself. I got a master's degree in clinical psychology and worked for a short while as a school psychologist, and then went back and got a PhD in school psychology from the University of Cincinnati down here in Cincinnati. I have recently retired, having spent 40 years working in the schools. 32 of those years was spent in the public schools, and then I retired for a couple of years and then went back and worked part-time in a private Catholic school for another 8 years. Now, my interest in the area of working with youngsters who came from divorced, separated, single-parent families really started very early in my career. About the second year I was working, there was a place in Cincinnati that ran divorce groups throughout the greater Cincinnati area. They had various churches and community centers and things of that nature. And we used to refer kids to that particular place. And about 2 years after I was working, that place was called Beach Acres. They offered the training to run these divorce groups um, at their center. So I went to it, and I was pretty much hooked at that point in time. So I pursued starting to run groups for youngsters who came from divorced and separated families. Back then, had very few kids who were single parent families that were in my groups, but that increased as the years went on. I really enjoyed doing those types of things. And after about 10 years of doing most of my work in school psychology, meaning or traditional school psychology things or activities, I took a transfer into the guidance office at middle schools and gave me much greater opportunities to work with youngsters individually and in groups for more counseling types of things. So that's when I really kind of took off about 10 years into my 40 and because I had more time to do it, I had more freedom to do those types of things. So I started running groups for middle school students who came from those divorced, separated, and single parent families. One of the things I learned very, very early, even before even one of those first 10 when I was doing school psych most of the time, was the loneliness that many of these youngsters experienced. Uh, if I heard one kid, I heard 100 kids or more tell me in these groups, as well as individually, but more so in the groups. Dr. Berrens, before I was in your program, your group, whatever you want to call it, I thought I was the only one that ever went through this. I didn't realize that there were other kids out there that had some pretty tough situations which they went through when their parents were splitting or separating, whatever specific case would be. And so we started running these groups. And one of the things I found really interesting, and this was a learning curve for me very early on, you've probably heard that old phrase, misery loves company. Well, that's kind of what occurs when you run these groups for the first week or two, the first several sessions, because these kids they're middle school kids. They're not so apt to share everything right off the bat. And putting a group of them, 8, 10, 12 of them in a room together. He had this first couple who were willing to take the chance and the courage to share their particular background, and it all came out. And over the next, sometimes depending on the size of the group and how much kids had to say, they became complaint sessions for the first session or two because it was just getting it out. Lots of tears, lots of anger, lots of confusion about why this happened to me. Why are my mom and dad doing this? They always seemed to be such a happy family, and then poof, one day it ended. Or maybe the opposite situation. They were a situation where fighting and arguing, and this maybe even abuse was taking place. But I never thought they would really get divorced or split up, and now they have. But then after you got through those first session or two, when the kids kind of got it out there and shared their information with everybody, then we moved on. Then it was okay. How do we handle situations? How do we cope? How do we grow from this experience? Now, these particular groups I ran in schools, we typically met. Usually started around the end of September. We usually started schools very late August or early September. And by the time we get the groups going, it was usually late September. And we would meet twice a week throughout the entire school year. So we'd be somewhere in the neighborhood. Maybe a short year might be 14 or 15 meetings. A big year might be 18 or 19 meetings where we would get together. And you know, it, I never cease to be amazed at the resiliency of some of these kids, but I also never cease to be amazed at the sadness of some of the situations which these kids came from. When you're talking middle school students, and that is where I ran the majority of my groups. I had a few at the high school level when I was playing more of the school psychology role because I had a high school part time at that point in time, but most of my career, as I said, was in middle school. I never, middle school age kids at sixth, seventh, and eighth grade, they're kind of coming into their own, and they're kind of wild, and they're very kind of emotional. And it was always just interesting to watch how they were reacting to some of this stuff because it was not at all unusual to have kids who, let's say the divorce or their parents split up occurred when they were 3 or 4 or 5 years old. Not that it was easy for them, but as time progressed and they kind of hit those middle school years and they started questioning things. And it's a whole new ball of wax that sometimes exploded with some of these kids. And sometimes I would have parents tell me that, 'cause sometimes parents would call me. Obviously, they wouldn't tell them what happened in the group, but they'd say, "Well, things were okay. We were divorced, and they seemed to be going along all right. And now suddenly they reached this fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade age level, and things changed." Well, it's kind of developmental. I mean, the kids just start questioning. They start rebelling at that age, anyways, and they start questioning relationships. Um, you know, it occurs differently for all kids, but some kids kind of get into that. They're recognizing the opposite gender when they get to be seventh, eighth grade, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, and so that even plays a little bit of a role, I believe, in why they're questioning some of the stuff which went on with their particular families. So it's a lot of turmoil, and what can I say? I saw lots of kids individually, but I always felt that I made much more progress with youngsters when I saw them in an individual setting, not individual, in a group setting. And it was that camaraderie that developed, that was realizing that I'm not the only one that goes through that. And a lot of the youngsters also really gained a sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Almost, I think what I should say, but they helped each other out. And, Sarah might tell Joey, well, when my dad was doing this or when my mom was doing this, this is how I handled it. And maybe Joey would pick up on that idea and try it for a while at home. And that was real sense of accomplishment and the pride among some of these kids. I never ceased to be amazed at friendships that developed over the course of the school year amongst these kids. Because for example, the middle school I was in, we had somewhere between 200 and 220 kids per grade level. So the total building size was somewhere in the neighborhood of 640, 680 kids. And, they didn't always know the kids that came in the group. Sure, they might have recognized them because they were in their science class or their music class or whatever. But in terms of friendships, occasionally there were some friends that joined the group together, but not always. And it was really neat to see some of these friendships that developed and strength which they gained from each other from being in these these particular groups. It was just always really interesting to see how that occurred. Now, when I ran the groups, I was pretty open ended in terms of what we did. Now, I told you earlier on that I went through that training with a facility here in Cincinnati called Beach Acres, and I always had an activity up my sleeve. Uh, and one of the things we always did with the kids after they initially told their stories, and this usually occurred about the third session, sometimes the second session, was we would do a family shield where the youngsters of the shield was divided into five different sections, and the kids were asked to draw pictures. I would give them directions draw a picture of your family, and then we'd go around and talk about the family. That was always very interesting to see who they would and wouldn't include. Sometimes, if they were angry at one of their parents, that particular parent might not be included in the picture. Or it was interesting to see the placement of the kids or the family members and what the family members were doing in the picture. Second, part of the family shield, we would do something. The prompt was, I want you to draw a picture of their happiest memory with your family. That was always interesting because some kids could not draw a happy memory with their family. Some kids had witnessed fighting and arguing and screaming and all those crazy things for years, and they just couldn't come up with something.
Yeah.
Other kids, they're 12, 13, 14 years old, and they drew that happy memory. Might have been Christmas when they were 4 years old and mom and dad were still together. And then other pictures, draw a picture of why you think your family's divorced. And another one, the bottom of the shield with a small section, it was 3 words to describe your family.
Okay.
And that was always interesting to see what kids came up with. Was it something that was kind of current? And we would question them. Is this how you feel about them now? Or is this a description of how you think they are now, current days, or how you think they are just in general? And all these things would just really, it was kind of the poking the bear to get them to talk, and it was always interesting, and how the things they would bring up, the things they were struggling with, and again, it was interesting to see how the kids interacted with each other, what they did to support each other. They often asked questions which I didn't think about, and that was just really a cool thing to observe from my standpoint.
What were some of the questions that they were kind
Well,
of asking each other?
they might ask each other. Let's say on the family shield. Well, why'd you leave your dad off the picture for? Or why'd you leave your mom off the picture? Or why's your one little brother way up here in the corner of the picture? Well, maybe then they might say, well, because he just doesn't like to be with anybody. He's kind of isolated. He's the strange kid in the family. You never knew what you were going to get. Some kids might say, well, none of the people in your picture, because these were not elaborate drawings. Some of the kids would do stick drawings, and that's cool. And I told them that, because some of the kids, oh, don't make me draw. No, you can be stick.
That's all I can do.
Yeah, I agree. You're not alone. But what some kids would say, well, how come these three people got smiles on their faces and these two people don't? Or how come nobody in your picture has smiles on your face? Or this happened very rarely. Why did you leave yourself off the picture of the family portrait? The
Oh.
kids would ask those kinds of questions, and that was kind of cool.
And
But
what was the just real quick,
yeah,
why would the children leave themselves out of the
who
picture?
knows? I mean, you
Oh, you
might.
don't know.
I just don't want to be with those people anymore. You I don't
Okay.
anymore.
That's actually a good answer too,
Yeah,
because they can go, okay, well, at one point, um, they had that connection with their family. They were like one unit. And then let's say, okay, yeah, the divorce happens. And then they're like, there's the other family where, let's say, there's, let's say the man comes into the man is dating the mom. So it's the child's mom. And then there's like a new man in the picture, but the man brings another family. So then he's probably feeling like, okay, well, I don't feel a part of this family and I don't feel a part of this family. So he doesn't know where he belongs. I think that would be
yeah. The whole
something that I would see
you
in
know
that.
you brought up a topic which came up frequently, and that was mom's new boyfriend or dad's new girlfriend.
Right.
And it happens, and people certainly deserve the opportunity to form new relationships. Partnerships are important. I mean, but it's it can be tough on everybody involved. Meaning, let's say it's dad who has the kids, and and now he's got a girlfriend, and well, how do the kids deal with the girlfriend? And how does the girlfriend deal with the kids? Is she kind of a bossy individual that gets in there and tries to play mama too soon, or maybe mama at all? Maybe the kids aren't willing to accept anybody to tell them what to do, and yeah, that's a tough situation, and it's unfortunately it's a very common situation. I think lots of people don't handle that very well,
Yeah.
and sometimes the kids, even if the parents do try to handle it real well, some kids just aren't ready to hear it. They're not ready for a new partner for mom or dad. And especially if you've got somebody in there who's going to say, let's say somewhere down the road they move in together. Let's say they've gone out for a year or so, and then they decide to move in together, and the kids are there, and mom gets angry, or not mom, the new person gets angry that one of the kids is a slob. Starts to, "Would you
Yeah.
please pick up your clothes and get them out of family?" Stuff like little things like that can make things kind of ugly, and you think, "What's a big deal?
Mhm.
Pick up your clothes." But little things like that, because that person is not my parent. What are you telling me what to do for? You don't have any right to tell me what to do, and that becomes a bigger issue, I think, when they're 13, 14, 15,
Yeah.
than it does when they're 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And that's
Yeah.
the whole middle school rebellion, beginning to find myself. It just becomes a different ball game with that age group of kids.
Oh, yeah. Totally. So let's go into the book portion
Okay.
of this. Um, so yeah, please let our audience know. I'm sure you have the book with you,
Yeah,
right?
I had to.
Okay, good. 'Cause I've done that. I'm like, I'll try and promote my book, and then I'm like looking around on my desk, and I'm like, oh shoot, where's my book? And then so now I'm smart enough, and I just keep like my book here.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, don't put it away.
the whole idea of writing a book had been something that had been floating around in my head for more than a few years.
Yeah,
And
please tell us about that. And
well,
then
it was
the
never
idea. I want to tell the audience about the idea, how the book
okay.
was into fruition, and then just give
Yeah,
us everything.
let me give it to you. Lockdown occurred. I got sent home from school. At that point in time, I was working in the Catholic school, and I was working basically 2.5 days a week. I didn't work half days, but that was my equivalency of working half time. And I got sent home with nothing to do. So I thought, there's so many kids out there who don't talk to anybody. They never, whether it's an individual or it's a group, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, whether it's a priest or a minister, an uncle or an aunt or grandparent, they just don't talk to anybody about the stuff that's going on in their family. So I thought, I kept going back to that loneliness issue with kids talking about. I thought I was the only one that ever went through this. I thought my situation was the worst in the world. So I decided to sit down and write a story. Wrote one story. What my book is it consists of 7 short stories. They're all told by teenagers in flashback in their own voice about what they went through in their particular family situation. Um, it was extremely easy for me to write because I had dealt with hundreds of these kids over 40 years. So I just sat down and started writing stories. And, they're not long. The book is designed for anybody sixth grade and older. I wouldn't have anybody less than sixth grade read it unless the parent read it first and gave the agreement. And because, there's abuse in one of the stories. There's some alcoholism that goes on. Nothing is described in any significance or detail at all, but it occurs because it's referred to. Um, but I wrote the stories, and they cover a lot of different topics. Matter of fact, a friend of mine who was a counselor at the local high school where I worked, I asked her as one of my pre-readers to see, is this worth it? Is it any good? And she came back to me with it. First of all, she really liked it, and she says, "You hit more situations in this book than you could. Than I mean, you hit a lot of different situations. I hope no kid goes through quite all the things that any one of my stories have, but I mean, they are pretty typical. I mean, I tried to span, some of the kids, you can tell that they probably came from families that didn't have a whole lot of cash around. A couple of the kids came from professional families. A couple of the kids, lived in. You would guess that they lived in the burbs, and they were kind of a middle income type of family. I had one kid that lived in a trailer park. Not didn't have two. Their family didn't have two wooden nickels to rub together. So, I really tried to hit that. And again, the purpose initially was give other kids, because I said most kids, I think, saw nobody. Um, Give other kids an opportunity to say, I'm not the only one that goes through this. Other kids go through this. Oh my gosh, some of the characters in this book had it way worse than I ever had. And that's something which I found in the group too. Some kids every once in a while they come say, Susie over there, my gosh, I can't know how she gets up every morning with some of the stuff she had to go through. I thought mine was bad. So there's that recognition that I'm not the only one that goes through this kind of stuff, whatever it might be. And maybe some people got a little worse than I do. The other thing which you can find from reading the book, it's not a how to make this better book. But when you do read the stories, I hope that the kids get a few ideas on how to cope with particular situations that come up in the stories. Um, but that's not the purpose of the book. In terms of now, they do these things, and you'll find a better way to deal with your family situation. It's not that type of book at all. And the afterword does have some suggestions for parents and kids as well, as if you want to pursue further assistance for yourself or your family. I threw some of that stuff in the afterword, but it's more just a kind of a look what happens to everybody else. And and the other thing I found is my second audience for the book, besides the youngsters, and again, sixth grade on up, teenagers seem to really like it. I will tell you, having done a lot of book signings, teenage girls seem to like the book a lot. A little bit about it, again, I think it's the age. Girls tend to like the drama of the stories. They're sad, many of them are. Um, but you know, we put it out there also for the parents. And what some parents have come back to me and said is that, I really didn't realize what my kids were going through. I was so wrapped up in this mess of splitting up, um, that I kind of, and some of them said, I kind of ignored my kids. I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to them. I thought they were fine because they acted fine. And that's a big thing. I mean, I think especially when they get a little bit older, some of them just they act like everything's cool. They're not going to talk to their mom and dad about what they're angry at or what they're frustrated with or what makes them anxious. That's not the beast of a middle school age kid at all. I mean, not that there aren't exceptions, but most kids just aren't that way.
Yeah.
So parents have told me, this kind of opened my eyes a little bit as to what kids go through, what my kids may have gone through. And then there's the other audiences. I mean, what I mentioned to you, I've done a lot of book signings this school year to get, or this, well, really it started the end of last January, and I
Yeah.
sometimes one or two a week for a few hours. And
And in fact, you just came from a book
I
signing,
had
so
one
I just
today.
wanted to
I was in a book
put
signing
that out there for 4 hours.
for 4 hours. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I hope they fed you.
Well, no, they don't feed me. They don't feed me. No, the book signings, it's a unusual program, which I just found out about
Yeah.
back in about a year ago. There's this program down in the States called National Authors in Grocery Stores. And I can't say enough positive things about it. Currently it's in 16 states down here. It just came to Ohio in 2024, so I signed up. So, the largest grocery store chain in the country happens to be headquartered in Cincinnati, and they joined this year. So I go to these grocery stores for 3-4 hours once, some weeks twice, and I sit there with my little table, and I have some of the most interesting conversations with people. Um, One of my signs at my table is "Meet the Characters." One sign has to say things which the author's program wants on it. And the other sign, I put what and I have "Meet the Characters." And for example, the first sentence says, "Meet Natalie as she deals with her parents' alcoholism." Uh, who was it then? Emma, as she tries to understand why she and her sisters all have different daddies. Um, that's kind of setting the hook for selling the book. But it's also interesting because I'll have these adults at the book signing who wander up to my table, and they'll be looking at the characters and reading that list. And some parents will say, "That's my family, that's my family, that's my family, and that's my family." And just today at a book signing, I had a lady break into tears. And that happens probably every other book signing. I have one or two people just break into tears because it hits a nerve. They were either through it with their own families now, and they're the adult that got divorced, or maybe their parents got divorced when they were young. It's been interesting also. when you're doing this book signing, it's kind of crazy because you got all these people walking by you. And if I can get them to come to my table to listen to what the book is about, if they come from a divorced, separated, single parent family, I have about an 80% sale rate when they come to the table. And believe me, I don't do this to make money in terms of the book signings. I don't know if you know anything about writing books. You make a couple bucks a book. That's what it amounts to. But I do this because it's kind of become a cause for me. It's something that I do because hopefully putting something out there for youngsters to benefit from as well as their parents.
Yeah.
And the other group that I sell a ton of books to is teachers. I bet I have almost 100% sale rate to teachers if they come to the table, and about 100% sale rate to mental health workers, social workers, counselors, psychologists if they happen to wander by the table. But it's pushing a cause. It's hoping that somewhere down the line this stuff helps a few people. And I've had people. It's been interesting because I've had people come up at the book signings, and they'll say, "You don't remember me, but I bought your book 3 months ago when you were at the grocery store over in another neighborhood."
Yeah.
And then they tell me how much they like the book and how much they passed it to their kid or maybe their grandkid or something, and they found it real beneficial for them. So that's kind of what keeps me going. I have to admit, some mornings when I get up, I think, "Oh, do I really got to get another book signing today?" But then as soon as I get there, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. And the conversations with the people I have is what makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just the knowledge of it, and because I think it's one of those topics where everyone just doesn't want to go out and blurb it. Oh yeah, I got a divorce and this, like, it's not something you really celebrate you- per se,
Yeah,
unless there's situations that calls for a celebration.
sure.
Um, but I think, yeah, because it's such a hidden topic. However, it's one of those topics that it is frequent. It happens. It's actually an everyday occurrence, but we just don't talk about it. So just that knowledge out there going, okay, yeah, I've been through it. And then I think that sparks the curiosity.
Mhm,
But also then now we're taking not the adult portion, not the ones that have went through it, but the ones that, the children
mhm,
that are, they've been through it. So
mhm.
seeing their side, okay, this is what I see going on. And again, yeah, the parents don't understand because they're too focused on the here and now.
Sure.
We're going to court or we're doing this or we're doing that.
All
And
right.
poor little Johnny is sitting in the corner going to school every day or whatever. And you think, oh yeah, he doesn't seem affected. But now this is giving kind of like a voice
Mhm.
for the children going, hey, we are affected by this and this is how we feel.
Yeah.
Now, you said there's stories,
7
uh,
stories, yeah.
7 stories. So, um, if you want to just go over maybe two of them,
Okay.
kind of just so briefly, just kind of like, just to give an example of, you know, what two of them kind of were and what the children may have been feeling so that it kind of maybe sits in a little bit with some of us in the audience, just to kind of learn, okay, maybe this is what, maybe someone's going through a divorce now, that this is maybe what their child could be feeling and how important, maybe you want to explain how important it is to have some conversations with our children.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, if this is okay with you. Let me read when I've done some presentations for kids,
Yeah.
and they've been about when I've gotten into schools, the presentations have been more about how do you write a book, and then I pitch my book at the end. But one of the things I do right before I'm done talking to the youngsters, and they're older kids, is I read a couple sentences from a couple. I read the opening sentence from one of the chapters. And for those of you familiar, for your listening audience, the title of the book is "My Name Is," and there's three dots after it. And let me just read the beginning of one of the things, and I'll talk a little bit about it. My name is Natalie. I'm writing this because, well, I'm a mess, and my therapist thinks it's a good idea for me to get my story out. I don't know about that. I'm not even sure about this whole therapy thing. Like, she isn't the first counselor who is going to save me. Hell, can you even save someone whose life is such a full of nut jobs? I just don't know. Now, Natalie is a youngster who grew up in a fairly poor family, live in a trailer park. Parents were both abusers of both alcohol and probably, I guess you'd call them more lightweight drugs. Uh, Parents eventually split up because dad was fooling around on mom. And, the trials and tribulations of that. And then we go through a lot of other different things in the story, but eventually, mom finds a boyfriend who sexually abuses Natalie. Not in a physical way, but he's been somehow hooked up some camera in the bathroom and was taking pictures of Natalie when she was in the bathroom. And that's when Natalie really hits her major breakdown. And then the story goes on about some very supportive people who from her school, and also a caseworker from Child and Family Services in the area where she lived. And that's in a nutshell. That's obviously there's tons of stuff that occur in this story, but in a nutshell, that's kind of Natalie, and she's one of the tougher stories to read, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, would you like me to give you another one?
Yeah, one more and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Let's see. I just happened to flip open to one, so I don't know if this is the
Okay.
best to read or not. But anyways, my name is Mia. I'm writing this because my parents are divorced. I'm currently a senior in high school and can't wait to move out and head off to college. My younger sister Gail is in the 8th grade, and Megan, my older sister, is in nursing school and lives with her boyfriend. Mom moved out the summer between my first and second grade. The kids stayed with dad. Mom went with, I'll fill you in on that a little bit later on. So here we are, me starting second grade, Gail's a toddler, and Megan's a freshman in high school. You heard me right. 3 girls and dad. He had no idea what to expect. In this particular story, mom left because she got a job in a different town. Mom became a little more independent when the kids grew up a little bit
Mhm.
and started pursuing other things job wise. And mom and dad suddenly weren't getting along so well anymore. And finally, mom finds a job in another town, takes off to another town, not terribly close, several hours away. So it wasn't like we go visit, every weekend.
Yeah.
And then mom finds a boyfriend who, within months, is living with mom. So now the visits between when the kids will go to visit mom, the visits are less pleasant than they ever were. And then there's a lot of the story that
Awkward.
talks about dad adjusting to having three girls at home because he was the guy that worked all the time. He was an accountant. Matter of fact, she refers to him as the kids always called him Mr. Numbers when he was growing up.
Mr.
because,
Numbers.
because that's what he did. He
Yeah.
ran an accounting thing. And you had mom, who was the creative. Mom's job was she left for. She was in the story. She was a costume designer for the local professional theater, and she was assistant there. In the new job, she became the head person in another city. So
Um,
that's kind of the nutshell of what went on. It gives a little bit of insight into, oh my gosh, here I am. I've got 3 girls. What the heck do I do with this? And how do the girls deal with a dad and a mom not around?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it even goes into the fact of when the young girl starts her period,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how did dad handle this? And it was, I wish mom was here, but
Yeah.
and,
He's probably like Google and or
yeah,
calling
yeah,
some other male friends going, "Hey."
yeah. But those are real issues for kids.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
so those are just 2 of the 7, just to give you a feel for the types of stories they are. Some of the stories, when you finish them, you think this kid's probably going to be all right. And some of the stories, when you finish them, you think, yeah, I'm not so good sure about this kid. What
Do you know how they are now? Have you actually
these kids are all made up. They're all made up. I probably should have made that clear. They're all made up based on the hundreds of kids I worked with. So,
Okay.
for
So
example,
they're real life situations,
yeah,
but they're just different characters.
yeah,
Okay.
and they
Yeah.
might, any story might consist of information from a half a dozen or a dozen kids that I worked with.
Okay. All
So
right.
yeah, because you didn't want to get into all that permission stuff, and
Yeah.
nobody would identify any of these kids because some of them, the one kid is somebody I worked with very early in my career, heck, almost 40 years ago, and
Wow.
stories based on that particular kid. You know,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of kids. There's other stuff thrown in.
Right. And what's interesting is 40 years ago, it's still the same story, still someone's story right there. Just, there's someone else is living it. Right. So, couple details may be the same, couple details might be a little bit different, but so if you guys are watching and somebody that's going through divorce and they have children, or you could be a grandparent and your children
Right.
are getting divorced, and this could be for your grandchildren. There are many different people that have bought your book, which is so cool and so amazing because it's just giving them that little bit of information and just letting them know like they're not alone,
Yeah.
which is, we all kind of need that sometimes,
Yeah.
just going, hey, you're not alone. Um, so real quickly,
Yeah.
and of course, I just want to also say there are support groups out
Sure.
there. Don't think that you are ever alone, and there's many resources in whatever area that you live.
Mhm.
So please make sure if you are going through a situation, you need help, feel free to reach out to someone in the area. I'm sure, or a friend can help, whatever. Just let your voice be heard.
Mhm.
Please don't feel like you're ever alone. And now, John, if you want to let us know first where, if anyone can contact you, where they can,
Yeah.
where to get your book, and then, yeah, that's great.
Well, right now, about the only place you can find my book is on Amazon. The book is called My Name Is. Uh, you want to go to Amazon Books and put that in, and you actually probably want to put my name in also, John Berrens, because if I had to do this book again, I would have given it a different name because there are lots of books out there with my name is somewhere in the title. And if you just go to straight Amazon and not Amazon Books and you put my name is, you will get name tags.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
you
I
know,
remember you telling me that before,
yeah,
and I was just
I've done
like,
it a little differently, but it's just the way it is. But no, you can get it on Amazon. I can give you an email address, which I just used for the book, if you think that was is appropriate.
sure.
Okay, it would be John Berrens. That's JohnBerrens, the number 20, and at gmail.com. JohnBerrens20 at gmail.com.
Perfect.
That's
Thank
the
you
easiest way
so
you can
much.
contact me through that particular email address.
Awesome.
I just use that email address for the book.
Yeah. And then, of course, your social, you just have Instagram, right?
Yeah, we do Instagram, Facebook. That's it at this point in time.
Yeah.
I'm not real familiar with. I'm not great at the social media stuff.
Okay. Not everybody is, and that's fine. So, and I did tag you. So if anyone needs to find you, they can go back to my post and then you're tagged right there and then they can find you as well. And
Sure.
then they could probably message you through that too if they have any
Mhm.
questions about the book, or I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe there'll be another book down the line. I'm not going to give away
yeah.
things, but
Down the road, we'll talk about what else we're working on. Right.
right, exactly. So, thank you, John, for
Thank you
your
very much.
time.
Thank you for having me.
Um,
I appreciate you.
don't run away after the show. We'll get
Sure.
the other show organized. Okay. Thanks everyone for tuning in this evening here on Just TV, Just FM Underground Radio C, the NCG television network in Italy. You're also watching Roku Station 101, which streams Just TV, Just FM 24/7. So if you ever, want to catch a movie or catch another show, they're always on there, which is cool and fun. Hope you guys are staying warm. Just a quick note again, Wednesday, big things happening. 12 Days of Christmas giveaways with myself and Chiller is happening. That's the first day of giveaways. We're going to post everything up then. You guys can see more information will be given tomorrow at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So you guys can tune into that. And then also the Shift Happens show on Wednesday. It'll be birthday shifts for myself and anyone that wants to, donate to this cause. I'm going to post it up. That could be a wonderful birthday gift to myself. You guys can do that. Just be able to give to, I think it's Mamas to Mamas, but we're going to post that up, have all the information there and things that you guys can probably donate money or items, whatever. We'll post that up. So you guys have all that information in front of you. Thank you again for tuning in this weekend. And I will see you guys on Wednesday for the Shift Happens show. Make sure you guys stay connected and stay warm.